section 1.4. We're going to talk about language and representation. Namely, we're going to revisit back the um, the matching game where words map to the world or facts, right? So in the previous section 1.1 in the matching game, you have statements, right? And then you have facts in the world. And then there is a mapping between the statements and the facts. In section 1.4, we're going to challenge that assumption. We're going to challenge that model that statements actually maps to facts in the world. Okay, so how can we conceptualize this? How statements don't have to map to facts in the world, right? And I think this is important to think about some examples, maybe, and maybe you can think of some examples, right? So statements can have non-representational value, right? If statements can have non-representational value, maybe we don't need truth makers. Maybe, statements can be true without a truth maker. But if so, then why do we call a statement true in the first place? That's a question the group should, ask, right? So statements can have non-representational values. Maybe can statements have more than non-representational values? But if statements just have non-representational values, then maybe we can say, in some sense, that there is no need for a mapping between statements and facts because statements don't represent anything in the world. So now the question is, does statement have non-representational value? I'm inclined to think that statements have some non-representational value, but perhaps there is some aspects of statements where there is representational value, but that's just my own perspective. So I think the paper or this section, the author goes on to just question this idea that maybe if statements have non-representational value, maybe we don't need a truth maker. Maybe it doesn't make sense to say that statement is true because there is no truth maker. So then the author goes on to say that maybe we could dispense with this whole idea of representation to begin with, like namely the matching game analogy, right? So again, with this idea that there are statements here, and then that these statements map onto facts in the world. If statements are not representational, then there would be no need to have statements on the left map onto facts in the right. Okay? But what does that even mean, right? It means that we have to abandon the whole notion of word-world relation. So let me repeat it as it's the word-world relation. So there is the word, and then map onto the world, right? So give example, right? There is the word cat, and then it's mapping to, a cat in the real world. Or the helium atom is mapped onto the word helium atom is mapped onto facts about the helium atom, for example, right? If words or language or fragments of language don't have any representational value, then this whole connection between word-world relation would break down, right? So what is a strategy, according to the author, for his global expressivism? The author's strategy is namely this. The author is saying that what you should not do is all statements don't have representational value. So the author is saying to us that the statements, namely the statements here, don't have any. We're not gonna say that none of our statements have representational value. That means that none of our statements have this mapping between statements and facts. That we deny this mapping exists. What we're gonna say is that representation as a notion is not viable and should be dispensed with. Namely, so this whole representation where facts map into this relation between statements map into facts could be denied it or could be dispensed with altogether. And if so, if you know, if we can dispense with this notion of representation, then global expressivism would win by default, right? So to consider the difference between these two lines, right, is the first line is all our statements don't have representational value presupposes that representational value exists. That statements can have representational value. So the first statement, uh, just simply denies that all our statements have representational value, but still maintain that representational value is a legitimate notion. Whereas the second statement, representation as a notion is not viable and should be dispensed with, denies the whole idea of representation in the first place. Basically, it denies that there is this word-world connection, or denies that there's a connection between true statements on the left-hand side and the facts on the right-hand side. The second thing the author talks about is this point of view shift, right? Just a shift in perspective from us, the theorists or the philosopher in question. And the shift is to look at humans as natural creatures, right? Humans as natural creatures, humans, and then two is that human language are a natural phenomenon in the world. So, so humans are natural creatures, and human language are a natural phenomenon in the world. And then three is that we should adopt the point of view of a linguistic anthropologist, right? So I think maybe what the author is saying is that, we should look at human beings as natural creatures, and because we are humans are natural creatures, our language is a natural phenomenon, and as such, it doesn't tell us anything about reality, or there's no mapping between language and reality, because it's all about language use and how creatures like us use language. I think that's really where the author is trying to go with this kind of point of view shift. My question is, suppose that we do adopt the author's point of view shift. What does it say about theory between language and reality? I mean, like, does our language really have no connection with reality whatsoever? Or because, or is language nothing more but just use, how we humans use it? Okay.